Why, hello. Yep. Oh, hi. Yes. Hello. Yep. Camera's on, so now you want attention, right? Is that the game that we play? This is what I deal with, folks. Try to make content. This is why I don't post videos as often as I should, because this guy, he demands so much of my time. And then he sticks his ass in my face. Such is life. Why, hello there, endurance nerds, fitness obsessives, people who are tweaking out for some of them their XP points. I don't have any. Don't ask. But we are here talking about everybody's favorite software that starts with the letter Z, Zwift, a fan favorite. And even more to the point, we are talking about workouts. So, crack open your favorite grown-up beverage, and let's get into some fun, shall we? Chemicals. Don't judge me. It's like my one vice. It's been a tough year. It's been 25 days. We're still in that 30-day trial period, right? Money back and all that jazz? No? All right, we're going to try to make the best of it anyway.
Sure, Jan.
Over the course of the years that I've been creating videos about Zwift, I have been asked more times than I can count to give my thoughts on Zwift workouts or Zwift plans, whether it's been for a dedicated video or in the comment section. But this is a really tough topic to tackle. There's just a lot here. There's a lot to say. I've not been shy about my criticism of plans and workouts on Zwift. I don't think many of them are very good, but I have not really done my due diligence in putting more meat on the bone to help people to understand why and how they can extract the most value out of Zwift as a platform that you're paying for that does have workouts and training plans without getting stuck into the trap of those not so good workouts and not so good training plans. The whole of a training plan is not necessarily greater than the sum of its parts. It can and should be, but it's often not. And the underpinning of that design is going to be the structure of the individual workouts themselves. When you're looking at building a training plan, you really need to cover three major elements. One is specificity. The training plan needs to be built for your specific goals in mind. So criterium racer and a long distance time trialist are absolutely not going to follow the same plan. They might be similar in some ways in something like a base phase, but as you get closer and closer to the event, those training plans are going to diverge substantially. So it's important to have that specificity, and the workouts are a part of that. The second thing you need to look at is periodization. So periodization is really the build of load and the ability to recover from those builds. So a lot of times you'll see something like a build, recover protocol. There are multiple permutations or variations of how many weeks you do between those recovery weeks. But you're basically building that TSS and that load within that specificity over the course of weeks and then allowing the body the ability to recover. If you don't periodize well, you're not stacking your capability or you're not absorbing the training because you're not recovering adequately. And the third thing you're looking for is progressive overload. And that's the concept that if you continue to do the same exact thing over and over again, your body will acclimate to it and you are going to plateau. So to progressively overload your workouts, you're going to fall into 5 different buckets of adjustments. So let's say you have VO2 max intervals and you are doing 4 by 3 minutes at 110% of your FTP with 2-minute recoveries. The first thing you could do is you can adjust the intensity for that on interval of 3 minutes. Instead of 110%, can you move that up to 111 or 112%? That may seem like a very small improvement. It might even just be a couple of watts. But being able to stack that week to week and month to month, all of a sudden you're at the end of a training block and you can see a substantial difference from where you are today to where you started several weeks ago. Or you can hold that 110% fixed and you can take that 3-minute block and you can extend it. Can you add an extra 15 to 30 seconds? Now you're enhancing that ability to hold that high level of power for longer. You're acclimating just that small amount. 15 seconds doesn't seem like a ton, but again, you stack that over weeks and months, it can make a huge difference. Another thing you can do is you can hold both the time interval as well as the intensity constant, but play with the recovery interval. So instead of getting 2 minutes of recovery, now it's 1 minute of recovery. It might not be enough time for you to fully recover your heart rate or to spin out some of that byproduct from that lactate surplus that you've built up. And you have to be able to repeat that when you're not quite ready to do so. That can make a substantial difference. You can also increase the number of repetitions that you have in a particular set. So if you start with 4, maybe do move that up to 5. Or you can increase the number of sets that you have altogether, expanding the workout, especially as you get into those more advanced categories. Instead of doing maybe 3 sets, now you're moving up to 4. You can mix and match and create a number of different permutations of how you progressively overload. You can do 1 at a time, you can do multiple at a time, but the idea is to make that workout more difficult as you move through your training block such that you are eliciting that super compensation that comes by pushing yourself beyond your previous limits. And workout design is very important when it comes to progressive overload, because you need to start with a structure that really lends itself to being able to go through that process. If you have an overly complicated or obtuse type of workout, it's going to be almost impossible to progressively overload it. Now, there's something to be said for something like a simulation or a testing protocol for a workout. Those are kind of one-offs. I'm not going to be criticizing those in particular from a progressive overload perspective. But when it comes to those things that you routinely add into your plan, maybe you do Tuesday, Thursday intensity, whatever your plan looks like, those workouts should be pretty easy to measure and manage over time that you're progressively overloading them. Now, why is this important to my conversation about Zwift? And that's coming from the fact that I'm looking through their workouts here, and we have thousands. I can scroll endlessly. I'm not going to count these because I just don't care enough. But there are a ton of workouts in here. But what I don't see is a whole lot of opportunity to progressively overload the hundreds, if not thousands, of workouts that are available on Zwift. More is not necessarily more when it comes to workouts. I see a lot of variety here, but I don't see a whole lot of complementary workouts that you can use, whether you're building your own plan or you're following a Zwift plan that follows those core tenets that we just talked about in terms of specificity, periodization, and that progressive overload. The best I can describe it is kind of an afterthought. We'll go into the collections here. We'll look at VO2 max. Of those 1,000 some odd workouts that we see on Zwift, look at this couple of dozen that you have available for VO2 max. And look, you don't have any permutations that you can progressively overload. Now, if I want to be completely charitable, there are probably some that are just not properly categorized, that are sitting in the wrong bucket or haven't been placed in a bucket, but you don't have that capability to build that plan. And if I'm looking at these workouts without any progressive overload options, that doesn't really bode well for what I'm going to see when I go into a plan that has that type of development necessary for that type of fitness. Now, when I say that workout and structured training on Zwift is an afterthought, that's not meant in the pejorative. I actually think that that's okay. Every business needs to determine what its core product is. Almost all of their time and resources should go into that core product. Everything that is nice to have or in the periphery, you do that with any overhead or additional resourcing that you have available. But you certainly don't put those features at the expense of the core product. And when it comes to Zwift, the core product is a combination of community and visuals. That's it. They use the visuals in conjunction with some reward elements to keep people motivated to ride when indoor training is really tough. And then they use that sense of community to have people realize that they're not alone. And it's actually kind of fun. You can do those group rides. You can do those races. It's a way to keep you coming back time and time again. Those two things work in conjunction to motivate riders to continue to come back to the platform. But if we rewind back 10 years, around this time, the first quarter of 2015, it's the first time that I was on Zwift. It was an open beta, and it was just a very simple platform with the world. Richmond was in development at that point in time, but it was just something pretty to look at. That was their core product. Their hopes was being able to have people ride around in the same world and see each other and work and ride with each other and communicate with one another. That was it. I took the summer off because I didn't ride indoors during the summer. And when I came back, they had moved to a paid model. So I think I joined the paid model maybe like August, September-ish. And very shortly thereafter, workouts were introduced. Anybody who's been around that long can correct me if I'm wrong on the timeline, but I'm thinking October, November of 2015 was when we first saw workouts hit the platform. And I think this was done not because Zwift really wanted to be in this market of we're providing the superlative structured training experience, but they realized that the people who were on Zwift at the time or looking at Zwift at the time were on indoor trainers on something like Trainer Road. You have to understand the core demographic of people on indoor trainers back in 2015 was not the same as it is today. We were talking about serious training cyclists only. Anybody ridiculously masochistic enough to ride indoors and stare at a wall or stare at blue bars on a screen and spend a ton of money for equipment that by today's standards isn't even worth $50, it took a special kind of animal. And it created this zero-sum situation where it was an either-or. Zwift did not want to turn away customers because they weren't offering the things that cyclists were already coming on to do, which was structured training. It was a battle because of the technology. It was very difficult for people to run two platforms at once. I think Zwift realized this, and they had to put together the capability of doing structured work on Zwift relatively quickly so that they can bring people in for that off season. But what I don't think that they wanted to do was to be the architect of the workouts. They put a few of them out there and some plans out there to demonstrate what the program was capable of, but I think they always expected that people were going to kind of port in their own workouts or design their own workouts and just do what they were already doing and overlay it on Zwift natively within the platform. And I think that that holds true today. If you look through these workouts, this is a digital episode of Hoarders. Zwift throws nothing away. Every workout that has ever been integrated by a collaborative effort with something like GCN, Zwift Academy workouts, anything that they had integrated in their legacy plans, they all continue to live here in this bucket of stuff that you have to navigate through. If they wanted to be a leader in the training space, they would cull that stuff, rip out the poor quality workouts, and really focus the plans and workouts on what's mission critical and right size it for different types of athletes. I know that's a really long preamble, and it might sound like I'm trying to discourage you from doing Zwift workouts or plans, or I'm trying to poison the well. That's not the case. I just want people who are going to try to extract the value that they can out of what they're already paying for, using plans or workouts on Zwift with eyes wide open. You need to go into this understanding what you're looking for, and I'm hoping that by going through these kind of best and worst workouts, you can start to identify by looking through workouts and or plans what's going to work for you. And with a little bit of attention and time, you can actually make something pretty decent. You might have to structure your own workouts, but you might find that good workout on Zwift, and then you create a couple of custom workouts that are versions of that you can progressively overload. You only have to create them once, and you have something workable. I know a lot of you are not willing to spend money on a training plan or an additional platform. Maybe it's just not that important or that much of a priority in your life, or you just don't have the budget to do so. That's fine. I want to make this video as a tool for you to offset some of the roadblocks or the barriers that I outlined and make something positive of your training. So we're going to talk about the 10 best and 10 worst workouts. We are not going to use the same rubric. If I use the same exact scoring matrix for every single workout to create the 10 best and worst, I'd have a group of 10 and 10 that looked almost identical to each other. Rather, I'm trying to grab a smattering of the different pitfalls and positives that I'm seeing in workouts, something that is generally representative of the broader catalog of workouts on Zwift so that you know what to look for. And I'm going to start with the worst workouts first, not because I want to start on a negative note, but rather because I think it will help to lay out what you don't want to have in your workouts. And then the contrast in the good workouts will become a lot more evident, and it will help to reinforce that point of what you want to look for. So let's jump into the workouts here. I'm actually going to use a tool that is not specifically Zwift because of navigability. And it's a website that you may have seen on this channel before. It's called What's on Zwift. It is just a website that extracts all of the workouts, training plans, worlds, and other information for review offline so that you don't have to go on the platform to review things. They also do a much better job of serving up the workouts so that it gives you more information. So if I just go down and I select something manually, I'm just going to pick one of the catalogs here and select a random workout 2x2 here. It's showing me a really good overview of not only the graph, a distribution. You only see percentages in Zwift. This will also break it down by minutes. And it also gives you this heads up display that you would see while you were doing the workout that you can't see beforehand without scrubbing over the playhead in Zwift. So I think this will give us a better view. So I'm just going to go through each of the workouts that I selected. I'm also not going to go through these workouts in any particular order. I'm just going to do them alphabetically because that's how I went through and selected them when I was searching through the humongous catalog that is Zwift workouts. So you've got all of these cool functions that you can use, and I'm just going to search by name. And look, this first one here, we're going to search for attack. And what you'll find in the search results is there's actually multiple entries for a lot of workouts. It'll show you what bucket or what plan it is. So in this case, attack is in both the 60 to 90 minutes to burn bucket for the collections and then the build me up plan. So it doesn't matter which one you pick, you'll get the same result here. So I've got this zoomed in. I might be scrolling a little bit more. I just want to make this easier to see for those of you who are viewing this on mobile. But here's some key information here. It's a 1 hour workout and 61 stress points. I'm probably going to keep calling stress points TSS because I'm just habituated to saying that from Training Peaks, but they're the same thing. It's essentially a measure of how much load that you are taking on as a percentage of your FTP. I have an entire video on this. I will link that down below that explains this a little bit more. But if you're looking at the ratio of the minutes of your workout to stress points, that 1-to-1 is a pretty reasonable amount of load. As you start to exceed that kind of 1-to-1 ratio from the stress points or TSS perspective, now you're talking about baking in more fatigue, getting a good amount of load. More load is not always a good thing. We're not just looking to bring up that CTL, that chronic training load, or that fitness score that you might see in Strava. It's important, but that's not the only thing that you should be looking for. But at a glance, you can tell that there's a reasonable distribution of load for the time that you're on the bike. So if we're looking at the description here, it says, with a focus on short efforts, the focus here is your ability to attack, exclamation point in parentheses, the exclamation point is important here, ladies and gentlemen, the group and recover after. The kind of punchy top-end acceleration that you will need to compete against a group or just your own PRs. Bottom line is no. No, that's not what this workout accomplishes, not by any stretch of the imagination. If I look at the graph holistically, what I have here is a quick warm-up here, ascending with some primers. I've got some 30-second efforts at 150% of their FTP, and then followed up by a 9.5, 10.5, and 12.5 minute effort at 80% of FTP. So tempo, solid tempo, not even high tempo. This, to me, if I just looked at the graph, looks like an aerobic workout. So if you are a low-volume athlete, you're going to do a lot of your aerobic development in those higher percentages of FTP, so into tempo and sweet spot, versus what you might see in a higher volume athlete that's going to spend more of that aerobic development in zone 2. It's just a matter of using your time more efficiently and making the best with what you have from a time perspective. But from an attacking perspective, there is no version in any universe where you will attack the group for 30 seconds at 150% of your FTP and then settle in at tempo. Full stop. It doesn't happen. That's called a failed attack. That's when you turn around and you realize you brought the entire group with you and you're just going to settle in and recover. But this is not going to simulate or enhance your ability to attack in any way, shape, or form. If you've gone through a number of the Zwift Academy videos with me, we've done several videos or several workouts that have done that attack simulation, which is more of a 30-second sprint effort followed up by a minute or two at VO2 max, and then maybe you're settling into threshold, and eventually, after 5, 6, 7 minutes, maybe then you are settling into the group at tempo and pulling turns. But you're certainly not jumping from 30 seconds at 150% of your FTP to tempo efforts. Now, if you want to make an argument for a beginner who just needs to acclimate to that high execution of power and then keeping the tension in the legs, I think that's fair, but you don't need to do these extended tempo efforts. You can do these for maybe 2 or 3 minutes. That's more than sufficient, and then maybe you do 6 to 8 of these, and that would be a beginner level attacking workout. But as it stands, it's just not fit for purpose. It's not doing what it espouses to do. Is it a horrible graph unto itself if you just took the name and the description out of it? No, it's not. It's actually probably a fine way to do an off-season aerobic set where you're still making sure that you get those touch points so that you remember what it feels like to do those high execution of power. You're not really baking in a whole ton of fatigue there. You should be able to settle in pretty well, but it's not an attacking workout. So the next workout here is John's Mix. It's in 2 different collections, just some time collections, both in 30 to 60 and less than 60 minutes to burn. So taking a look at John's Mix, primarily because of its popularity and ubiquity on the platform, there's no shortage of group rides or types of campaigns that integrate John's Mix. Primarily, I think, because the moniker takes its name from John Mayfield, which is one of the co-founders. So we're going to look at this 54 minute and 20 seconds. First of all, just piss me off more, why don't you? When you're on the bike for 54 minutes, just be on the bike for 60 minutes, but that's just my own OCD. But 54 minutes and 20 seconds, you couldn't add another 40 seconds of warm up or cool down. You really had to leave this dangling 20 seconds here. I don't even know how you do that. It's obnoxious. 71 TSS or stress points to that 54 minute ratio. So now you're looking at a substantial ratio of load to time. From a TSS and a CTL perspective, it's moving you in a pretty decent direction efficiently. If we read the description here, variety is the spice of life, and this workout runs you through the gamut. With 1-minute bursts, all-out sprints, and 2 long blocks at sweet spot power just below your functional threshold, John's Mix was developed by Zwift co-founder John Mayfield, and it's widely used by Zwift development team to test features. It's also a heck of a 1-hour workout. Zwift has given you the answer to the test right there in the description. It was designed to test features, and it's a good workout from an exercise perspective. It's a decent amount of load. You're going to burn some calories. So if you're just looking to get a good workout in from a general fitness perspective, I think John's Mix is fine. But if you're using it from a development and cycling perspective to improve certain capabilities, this is not where it's at. You start with these 3 by 1 minute at 150% of your FTP. These are actually tough intervals. You got 90 seconds, so 1 to 1.5 ratio of work to rest. 1 minute at 150% of your FTP is going to be hard for a lot of people. That's pretty substantial zone 6. So those are tough. Then you move into these sprint level efforts, which are 10 seconds at 265% of FTP. It's 10 seconds, but high level of power, you're talking about not necessarily an all-out sprint for most folks, but something approaching that. And then you get a little bit of a reprieve, 5 minutes at 60% of FTP. And then you're doing these 2 10-minute sets at 89% of FTP. So kind of middle of your sweet spot. The issue here, you're looking at the distribution, right? We're spending 21 minutes at zone 1, 10 minutes at zone 2, 20 minutes at zone 3, and then you're spending 4 minutes at zone 6. You're not spending enough time in any zone to elicit any type of supercompensation or improvement over time. Progressively overloading this is kind of a fool's errand, because even for a beginner, there's not enough time at the given intensities to elicit a change. If you're going to work anaerobically, then work these efforts independently. Whether you repeat these 3 by 1 minute efforts, maybe you do 4 of those. You could intermix these 2 with the sprints as well if you want to alternate them. I'd much rather see that focus on those 1 minute efforts repeated or focusing on sprint efforts repeated. But then you have these 2 10-minute efforts at sweet spot. You're not even spending enough time at sweet spot to elicit some sort of aerobic boost. Even at a beginner level, 20 minutes is not enough time. If you want to do this, do 4 of these. Do 40 minutes at sweet spot. That's a reasonable amount of load. Helps you to push up your threshold from the bottom without baking in too much fatigue so that you can come back the next day to do your workout. I think that would be fine as well. But mixing these together make no sense. There's also an argument to be had about exhausting your anaerobic capacity before you move into a high aerobic effort. So we talked about this before in previous videos about threshold. Some folks can perform for a certain period of time at their threshold by working anaerobically because it's a very well-developed system and they're trying to compensate for a not so well-developed aerobic system. So some workouts are designed to fatigue that anaerobic system at the front end and then move into threshold efforts. So then you get a more reasonable appraisal about your capabilities to sustain those efforts at threshold. But that's not even what we're doing here. And you wouldn't be spending enough time at threshold anyway. 20 minutes at threshold is probably the minimum barrier to entry for an effective threshold workout. You would have to make this workout a little bit longer to capture your intermediate or advanced. But I'm just trying to walk through this structure so that you're understanding what I'm looking for when I'm calling something a bad workout. I'm not trying to indiscriminately kick the dog here. It's just not designed well. The next workout we're going to look at here is called Garrett Thomas GC Rider here. So you see these in a couple different buckets, the Pro Training Camp and the 69 minutes to burn here. And, you know, I love G. Garrett Thomas is one of my favorite riders in the history of cycling. He's just class. I love a good underdog. I loved when he won the 2018 Tour de France. But if we look at this workout, we've got a 1 hour workout with 70 TSS or stress points here. So looking just at the ratio by itself, pretty decent amount of load here. And then if we read the description, we've got proud Welshman Garrett Thomas is one of the most decorated and versatile riders in the sport, capable of winning cobbled classics, time trials, and stage races, not to mention Olympic gold medals on the track. His 2018 Tour de France victory cemented his legacy as one of the sport's top riders. Today's workout gives you the tools to perform like G. One of his favorite trainer workouts takes you through all of the zones to keep you sharp and ready for any type of race. I find it very hard to believe that this workout in particular is something that Garrett Thomas does in one of his favorite workouts. What I suspect is the case is one of his favorite workouts is 90 minutes long. This is his warm-up to get the aerobic system online, and you probably see 5 of these efforts over here. So we'll just kind of go through the structure real quick. We've got this ascending warm-up starting in zone 2. You spend 9 minutes at 86% of your FTP. So on the top end of your tempo, tickling on that sweet spot effort. Then you're going to spend a couple minutes in zone 2 again. Then you're moving into 4 minutes at threshold. So you're continuing to bring that aerobic system online. 3 minutes at 105% of your FTP. So top end of threshold, break point into VO2 max. And then 1 minute effort that really primes the system at 125% of FTP. Then you're spend 10 minutes at zone 2 and then move into these 3 by 1 minute at 110% of FTP. So that low to middle VO2 max. And you're going to have a 30-second recovery. So the 2-to-1 ratio, that's a pretty solid set right here. The problem is there's not enough of them. Again, I suspect that a Garrett Thomas workout probably has like 5 of these and then creates a 90-minute workout. Looking at the zone distribution, 36 minutes at zone 2, 10 minutes at zone 3, 4 minutes at zone 4, 9 minutes at zone 5, and 1 minute at zone 6. 9 minutes at zone 5 from a VO2 max perspective, which I think this workout is really trying to get at. It's just not quite enough load there and time there. I would say even at the beginner level, at least you want to get 15 minutes of time in there, and you really want that 15 minutes to reside in the set. So you need a larger number of these sets. Now, you could certainly make this more efficient, right? I don't have 90 minutes to get on. You can take this kind of warm up and bringing that aerobic system online and really condense that. This takes up half the workout. The reality is that a workout should not be designed around working in every single zone. Spoiler alert, anything that looks like a rainbow in terms of the workout is probably not well designed. This is not meant to be a working set. This is absolutely an aerobic warm-up here to get the muscles firing and get yourself acclimated to do the work. But the reason I'm calling this a bad workout is A, because they've truncated in such a way that you're losing the benefit of the workout, and B, they're marketing it, if you want to call the word marketing, under a professional's name to give people the illusion that this is a pro-level workout. So if I'm doing a pro-level workout, I'm absolutely going to improve. I just don't think that it's delivering on the promise in this workout. So next workout we're looking at, it's Hang 10. It's in the 60 to 90 minutes to burn collection, and it's in the Build Me Up plan. Oof. You start to see more and more of these workouts in the worst category falling in plans. We might have some problems on our hand. So we have a 1 hour workout with 65 stress points. So a moderate amount of load attached there, about that 1-to-1 ratio. Looking at the description, intervals that look like a wave. Surfs up. Hang 10, brother. I get irrationally mad at workouts that are just so supremely unserious. This doesn't look like a wave. It looks like 5 middle fingers because that's what the workout is. It's giving you the middle finger. It's very minimal value from a structure perspective. You're creating undue complexity in the design of this workout for very little gain. Like, what's the value here? Yes, it's a generally aerobic workout. So you spend 15 minutes at zone 2, 20 minutes at zone 3, 10 minutes at zone 4, 5 minutes at zone 5. So basically aerobic into max aerobic. But like, why are you designing it like this? So you're spending a minute and 95%, then you're dipping into 80% for 2 minutes, then you're doing another 1 minute at 110%, then back to 80% for 2 minutes, and then you're bookending it with another 1 minute at 95% of your FTP. And then you're going to do that 5 times. Why are you doing this? If you want to do 5x5s at threshold, do 5x5s at threshold. If you've ever seen, there are some actual productive shapes that help you to develop both mentally and physically to adjust. So if you've ever seen kind of peak style intervals where you climb from 95% of your FTP up to maybe 110% and then come back down, and you have to manage both that increase as well as the decrease when you really want that recovery, but you have to keep tension in the legs. Those can be effective. There's also kind of that inverted shape. So you start at the peak, you might start at that 110%, you dip down into that 95%, and then you come back up. It's just to help you to get used to forcing yourself through that discomfort and that variation. There's a reason, there's a method to that madness and that variation. These shapes are kind of just like, I want to create something fun looking. I grabbed my crayons and made a workout. Yeah, you're getting a reasonable amount of aerobic load, but you can be spending this time more diligently. 5x5s is kind of bread and butter type of upper end threshold, right? Maybe you start those efforts at threshold and you work your way up to that 105% of your FTP with brief recoveries in between. Now you're getting 25 minutes of time at FTP in 1 hour workout. That's a great start. As you get more advanced as a rider, you need more than 25 minutes of load, but it's moving you in the right direction. This is just kind of disrespectful. I mean, they've made no effort to redeem this workout in any way, shape, or form. All right, next workout we have is called Mix It Up. It looks like that this is just in the fitness jumpstart plan, which is problematic unto itself. Again, more of these bad workouts in plans. Look at this mess. I just talked about the fact that anything that looks like a rainbow is probably the wrong workout for you. A good workout does not represent every single one of your training zones or your energy systems. This shit's all over the road. Try to memorize a workout like this. Like, a good workout is something that you can at least very loosely memorize. This is wild. 45 minutes and 5 seconds. I don't even know how that happens. And 54 stress points. So again, from a load perspective, a little bit over that 1-to-1 ratio. It's Mix It Up day. We're going to jump through different intensities with short intervals, offering an efficient and fun-filled session. We'll touch every zone and finish with smiles all around. Let's mix things up. Again, this is exercise. This is not improving as a cyclist. This is just exercise for exercise sake. 10 minutes at zone 3, 8 minutes at zone 4, 5 minutes at zone 5, and 2 minutes at zone 6. What are you enhancing here? And how do you progressively overload this? This is a mess. This is an absolute mess. This isn't even like a simulation or testing protocol. This is just, you're all over the road. You got a warm up here. You got some priming sets. I think that that's perfectly fine. You've got some over-unders here that are taking you from 85 to 95% of your FTP. I think from an over-under perspective, this is like decent for beginners, but after you get to a certain point in your cycling, you've got to take that power and bring it up to around that threshold area. Then you have kind of a different permutation of that here, I guess. Scroll down. We've got 2 minutes at 95% and 1 minute at 110%. You're doing this twice. And then you have a series of these, looks like 4 by 25 seconds at 150% of FTP with 45-second recoveries at 50% of FTPs. You could probably break out any of these sets here and make its own workout. and you could scale it and right size it to a person's capability. You want to do, 5 sets of this, great, do that. If you want to do multiple sets of these kind of structures in terms of over-unders, great. Or these, putting this all together, it's just noise. It's obnoxious. I have nothing else to say. Now we're talking about a variation on this theme here. It's in the 90 minutes plus to burn and the build me up. It's in a plan, yet again. I'm not going to beat a dead horse. Mosaic. We've got an hour and 55 minutes, stress points, 146. So again, a little bit more of that 1-to-1 ratio. Bit by bit, piece by piece, you are building a picture of a complete athlete with the fitness to tackle any challenge. Take another step towards completing your mosaic today. We're talking about a nearly 2-hour workout. So now we're talking about something that's going to target a more advanced athlete. What the hell are we doing here? Why do we need to touch every zone? This is unnecessary. Not to mention, these are not really the best design sets. This first one's pretty redeemable, 5 by 3 minutes at 115% of FTP, followed by 3-minute efforts at 65% of FTP. These are solid VO2 max efforts here. You do 2-3 blocks of this, you're in pretty good shape. Like, that's really going to work your VO2 max level. Why would you just leave it at that? Obviously, you have to account for different levels here. That more advanced, you can at least do 2 of these, if not 3 of them. You do have about 16 minutes at zone 5, so you're getting close to a reasonable amount of load and stimulus for most folks. But take this and isolate it and create a workout out of this. This set here, these are 10 by 1 minute at 100% FTP with 1-minute recoveries at 65% of FTP. This is just a waste, even at a beginner level. I mean, obviously you built some fatigue into the legs from max aerobic capacity in this first set here, but 1-minute intervals at FTP, 1 by 1. I mean, this is a beginner level set. Like, you're just introducing yourself to structured training and starting to get comfortable being uncomfortable because FTP is uncomfortable. But most people are going to have no problem holding 1 minute of their FTP. Even with these 1-minute recoveries, granted, we're not talking about full recovery. I just don't think that there's any redemption for a set like this. Then you have this last set here, which looks like 5 minutes at 85% of FTP with these 1-minute efforts at 100% of FTP. Looks like for some reason they've kind of broken up some of these efforts. I don't see any hidden sprints in there. It must have been the way that they dealt with the blocks. But this seems like a beginner type of work here. Like, you could certainly repeat this and introduce this to a beginner or include this in aerobic day where you're working at a high percentage of your FTP and you're getting a couple touch points in threshold. I think that you can work with something like that if you wanted to repeat that 2 or 3 times. But mixing these up in a mosaic, there's just no redeeming quality of that either. It's 2 hours of just load for the sake of load. Next, we're going to move on to power bookends. It's in a plan. Fitness jumpstart. Look at this mess. This is noise. This is overly complex for a workout. Somebody might look at this and say, wow, look at that sexy graph. Look at how hard I work. I can't wait to share this on my Strava and have people see how hard I worked for this workout. It's obnoxious. Again, you can't progressively overload something like this. What do you overload? What do you do? What do you increase the threshold efforts? Do you increase your bookend efforts? What are we doing here? We've got 11 minutes at zone 2, 5 minutes at zone 3, 14 minutes at zone 4, 3 minutes at zone 5, and 3 minutes at zone 6. So what are we working on? What energy system are we enhancing in doing this workout? We are getting load for load's sake. Let's read the description. Power bookends is here. This session mixes endurance with bursts that take you from sweet spot to your threshold power along the way. It's not just a workout, it's a fitness builder designed to keep you on your toes. So you're basically practicing for the unpredictability that you may face on the road. I'm not even going to go into detail on the structure here. It's just overly complex and unnecessary. It's not a good workout. All right, the next workout we're going to look at is step down intervals. It looks like it's in a couple of different buckets here. Climbing, fondo, and grand fondo, so in several different plans. Woof. I hate to see this represented so frequently in different plans. What is this? I mean, look at the shape on this thing. This is like somebody just learning how to use the workout builder for the first time. This is primarily aerobic. It is aerobic. It's not even primarily. It is 100% aerobic, except for 1 minute that you're spending really at your break point between aerobic and anaerobic. And you're just kind of dancing all over the place. So it's 50 minutes of work, 62 stress points or TSS. The main work here is long descending ladder that starts out at above threshold and steps down in progressively longer intervals. When you're tired going over those final climbs, you can rely on the strength you built up here. If this is the profile for power that you want to practice for your climbs, you're going to have some issues. This is not simulating anything. It's not helping anything. 22 minutes at zone 2, 13 minutes at zone 3, 8 minutes at zone 4, 5 minutes at zone 5, and a minute at zone 6. This is just 50 minutes of load. And I'm going to argue that you're wasting your time with a workout like this. You can do more with that 50 minutes to burn than something like this. I'm sorry, it's trash. Getting into the home stretch here, we've got the Kwiatkowski, which is both in the sprinting bucket and the Ineos Grenadiers virtual training camp. And you open this one up, like there doesn't look like there's much here, right? We've got 40 minutes and 30 seconds. Again, you can't just add 30 seconds somewhere to make it 41 minutes or take 30 seconds away. Stress points, 28. So pretty bad ratio of load. That's not always a bad thing if you're working on something like your sprint capability. You may not have a whole ton of TSS, but you're definitely working those type 2 muscle fibers and you're working a specific use case. But right off the jump, you're not getting a whole lot of load in that 40 minutes. So it's not particularly efficient from that perspective. Mikhail Kwiatkowski is a powerhouse cyclist who has a huge range of abilities that helps win races. Sprinting, time trialing, climbing, he can do it all. Today's workout is a great example of what it takes to win a race that comes down to the finishing for sprint. Get ready to give your all in the final 15 seconds. I admire Michael Kwiatkowski. I think he's a great rider. I love watching him ride. He definitely animates things quite a bit. I hate the fact that this workout here has taken his name because I don't know what the hell's going on here. So you've got your warm up here. These kind of look like priming sets, but maybe these are working sets where you're spending 30 seconds at 85% of your FTP. Like why? Then get 30 seconds of rest after that 30 seconds, woof. Then you have 30 seconds at your FTP with another 30 seconds of rest. Why? And then 30 seconds at 108% of your FTP. And then you're going to repeat that again. Like, do you really need rest after these 30 seconds? And then you're going to have this kind of nugget in the middle. It looks like 5 minutes at 65% of FTP. And then you're going to move into 30 seconds again at this 85% of FTP. Then another 30 seconds at 108%. And then you're going to have, it looks like a 30-second free ride. No, 15 seconds free ride. So you're going to get some sprints in here, which I think is fair, but you only have 4 of them. What are we working on here? This isn't simulating a race. You're not getting enough sprints in here to really make a dent. You probably have to put at least 2 to 4 more of them in here. I don't know why you would structure these 30-second efforts. The fact that you would need any type of rest after 30 seconds at 85% of your FTP is patently absurd. This is nothing. Why would you name this after a professional? It's embarrassing. And the last workouts, there's actually different permutations of the same workouts here. There's Watopia Hilly Forward and Watopia Hilly Reverse. It looks like one of them shows up in the climbing bucket. The Z Racing plan, these are showing up in plans. I'm just going to open up this Watopia Hilly Forward here, just so we have something to look at. What am I looking at? Like I'm just going to get mad. If I'm doing a workout like this, it has nothing to do with the intensity. This has got to be 50 step changes that you're going to see with arches and dings and whatever the hell you've got going on. This is mental overload at its finest. Well, let's take a look. 56 minutes and 32 seconds. Now you're just going to make me mad. Stress points, 81. 81 stress points in 56 minutes. That's going to burn up your legs. That's actually hard work. I'm not going to knock it from a load perspective because this is definitely, like, if you do this type of work over and over again, you're certainly going to get fit. A race simulation on Watopia Hilly Forward where you'll tackle 3 laps of the course. Here's a thought. Why don't you just do 3 laps of the course? Like, what even is this? I'm sorry. I don't mean to laugh. You know, I mean, a lot of people work their way into really good fitness just by like racing lots, and they get accustomed to that variability. And if they're racing to a certain extent, like if you're doing this profile, let's just take a quick look here, right? We got 19 minutes at zone 3. You got 3 minutes at zone 5 and 13 minutes at zone 6. Really, there's crossover between these two. So you've got about 16 minutes in your total workout. That is like right at that break point between zone 5 and zone 6, which for them is like that 120 to 125% of your FTP. But like, why? Why would you do it like this? And to be honest with you, like you can break out pieces of this workout. Like this interval here, I actually kind of like this. So you're spending 2 minutes at 30 seconds at 120% of your FTP. Then you're settling in for 80% of your FTP. And then you're going to hit another 30 seconds of 120% of your FTP. So maybe you've kind of followed a break and they kind of settle in, and then maybe there's a counterattack or something there. You could repeat this 5 or 6 times and you get a similar amount of load, and that'd be a pretty good workout. You could probably tease out some other sections here, but I would say that the most redeeming portion of this workout are these kind of mixed efforts here, which are somewhat simulating of a race effort. But I'm telling you, you can do this if you want, but this is the type of workout that you do once. This is annoying. Again, you can't progressively overload this, but this is a simulation workout. So I'm not even going to knock it from that perspective. There's just too many step changes. And if you're doing this shit in erg, this is a mess. I just don't think it's a very good workout. But if you've ever tried it, let me know how it went for you. But let's move into the positive here. Let's talk about the best workouts. And I'm actually going to start this in Zwift here, just because I want to show you 3 of them side by side, which will be a little bit easier to do when I'm in the Zwift platform. So we'll play scrolly scroll here. Looks like I missed them. It's these 3 workouts here. I'm going to combine them into one. It's the 2x15, 2x20, and 2x30 FTP intervals. These are super simple, and they are progressive overload versions of themselves. I'm just going to open up this one real quick here. So you've got 10-minute warm-up, 2x15-minute FTP efforts with a short recovery and a quick cool down. While it's not as infamous as 2x20s, the 2x15s will still help you to build base power and get it done in under an hour. This workout should be done after an easy or a rest day. So we are talking about 30 minutes of load at FTP, which I think is the barrier to entry for most intermediate to advanced riders. And then you advance this into the 2x20 and the 2x30. But they say it right in the description here. We've got a time efficiency factor. You can get this workout done in under an hour. It's 55 minutes and it's 71 stress points. And then you move into, like this one here is an hour and 20 with 101 stress points. And then you move into this final one, an hour and 40 and 135 stress points. So you are getting a good touch point. An hour at FTP, this is really going to help you with your sustained efforts and to build your FTP. It's super simple. You can memorize these. You can do these out on the road. You don't have to do them on Zwift. They're easy to remember. These are bread and butter type of stuff that you're going to see late in a base phase. You're going to see these early in a build phase for a lot of athletes. If you are a time trialist, triathlete, even a racer, this is bread and butter stuff that you can introduce over and over again in your training, whether it's every week or bi-weekly. This is a really good workout. If you can get these done, you're in pretty good shape. So surprisingly enough, I do not see the 2x20 in any of the plans. And I think that's a miss. This should be in something. Whether it's in the tail end of active off season or some type of FTP builder plan, the fact that these workouts aren't showing up is actually kind of crazy to me. Yeah, we're looking at these in time buckets. We'll check the 2x30 real quick, but not seeing these in any of the plans, that's a miss for me. But anyway, moving right along, we are going to move into another great workout that I found on the platform, and that is breakfast returns. So right now it's in 2 different buckets. So one of them is in the VO2 Max collection, and one of them is the Build Me Up plan towards the end of the plan, week 11. This is a great workout, and it's pretty simple, right? Wow, like lots of variety here, folks. We're going to do 10 by 30 seconds on at 130% of your FTP with 30 seconds off at 70% of FTP. So really bread and butter 30-30s. We've got an hour with 81 TSS, a block of 30-30 intervals that an athlete once told me who worked out early in the morning and usually right after breakfast always caused his breakfast to return. Even if your breakfast or lunch or dinner stays put, one thing will certainly rise: your fitness. Absolutely. All right, we look at the breakdown here. We've got 18 minutes at zone 2. That's comprised of your recovery intervals. You've got a minute at zone 4, or that's your primer, a minute at zone 5, and then 15 minutes at zone 6. In the course of an hour, getting 16 minutes of anaerobic work done, working on your repeatability. This is great stuff. And there are a number of different ways you can progressively overload or modify this workout. You can, for a beginner, maybe you just start with 2 sets, or you shorten these sets into 8 buys instead of 10 buys. You can expand the number of sets. You can expand this from 30 to 45 seconds. You can reduce the recoveries from 30 to 15 seconds. You can do a ton with this base of a workout. This is what I'm talking about. It's simple. You should be able to memorize a workout like this and get on the bike and really just have the platform remind you of what effort you're on when you're bleeding from your eyes. Great workout. Let's keep going. We'll move into cruise intervals. There are a number of different cruise intervals. I'm going to pick number 1 here. It looks like it's in the TT tune-up plan in week 1 and week 2. This is kind of bread and butter over-unders here. Good stuff. Looks like you've got, I'm not a huge fan of this warm-up, but this is just bringing your aerobic system online. So you've got this ascending warm-up. You've got some 30-30s that are like 65% and 89% of FTPs. So again, this is really just to warm you up, and then you move into your over-unders. So we've got a 54-minute and 30-second workout, good grief, and 62 stress points or TSS, good amount of load. Today's session consists of sustained cruise intervals. However, each cruise interval is preceded by a hard zone 5 interval. Let's ignore the fact that that's not the correct word. But moving along, cruise intervals are performed within zone 4. However, we are changing the target power every minute from slightly up and down within a narrow power band. Focus on controlled breathing and pedaling at a cadence similar to your time trial cadence. So forgetting about my pedantic grammar correction here. You're going to start with these 30-second efforts at 110% of FTP, which is kind of like low, middle, VO2 max. And then you're going to move into 4 by 1 minute, 92%, and 1 minute, and 97%. So you've got about 8 minutes for each block plus the 30 seconds. You've got 24 minutes at around your FTP. It's a little on the lower end, which is okay, especially if you're just getting into these types of efforts. And then you've got another, minute and a half here. So this is a good intermediate workout, but it's representative of a well-structured workout. Over-unders, right? You progressively overload this type of thing, you start to move that power up a little bit more. So instead of bumping around 92 to 97, can you move 95 to 100? Can you eventually move 100 to 105? Can you increase the number of over-under intervals to 5 or 6? Can you add an extra set in here? There are so many things that you can do with a very simple workout like this that's really well designed. All right, next thing we have here is Finish Focus. So it's in the time catalog for 60 to 90 minutes, and it's in the GCN Flat Out Fast. That's just one of their collections here, I think. And this is a really good workout. Interesting shapes here. So this is something that would probably be more representative of your attack intervals, right? So that first workout we started with, attack, those are not attacking intervals. These are somewhat closer to that. So we've got an hour and 10 minutes, 99 stress points, so really good ratio. And from a load perspective, finishing fast is the key to winning the race. This comes from being able to recover quickly after hard efforts, conserving energy in the race, and also being able to attack hard and maintain to the finish line. Warm up for 10 minutes with 3 by 1 minute fast pedaling drills, 110 RPM, and then do a 6 by 5 minute effort with each beginning in a short sprint, followed by an effort that tapers to your FTP, and then maintain FTP for the final 3 minutes. Recover completely between each one for 3 minutes and cool down. So yeah, this is really demonstrating that ability to attack and just hold a high level of power. I think that the naming convention might be a little misleading. We're talking about a finishing effort. That probably doesn't look like the profile for a finish unless maybe you're a lead out person trying to stay in the group. You might want to reverse that for somebody who is at the end of a race, but that's just being overly pedantic. You are spending 7 minutes in zone 4, 19 minutes in zone 5, and 4 minutes in zone 6. And you're really talking about high zone 4. You are getting a lot of load in your max aerobic capacity. You get 3 minutes of recovery in between, but this is simulating an attack. And this is somewhat reminiscent of a very common kind of 5 by 5 interval. In this case, you have 6 efforts, about 5 minutes apiece. And you're really working on that repeatability and that max aerobic capacity. So you can flatten out this profile here, right? You can do 6 by 5 minutes at 105 to 110% of your FTP. That's a tough workout. That's definitely an advanced level workout. But again, a number of ways to skin a cat on this one. You can work your way up to this, right? You can do larger recoveries for a beginner level athlete. Maybe you make these shorter, you make them 3 minutes. This is scalable, but the overall design, pretty simple. It's something that's helpful to have in erg mode to kind of help you to manage that ramp, but you can also break them down into a more finite 1 minute, 3 minute, 2 minute, whatever, and hold a fixed power. You're going to get the same benefit from it, but a very well-designed workout. All right, moving right along. We are moving into Lionel Sanders' Green Day workout. It looks like it's only in the one catalog here for VO2 max. Take a look at this. This is a short one. I'm not just picking it because I think Lionel Sanders is hilarious and he's a phenomenal athlete, but this is a very efficient workout, kind of borrowing from the same theme that we just looked at. It's a 43-minute workout, 63 stress points, so no joke on the load here. Lionel Sanders say green days are moderately few and far between when you're in the midst of heavy training. So if you have the luxury of planning your training around how well you've recovered and slept, you definitely want to utilize these green days to do the really hard workouts like this one. So I know he uses Whoop, but it's just the general concept, right? You come in a good day, you're primed and ready to go. This is probably a shorter version of something that you would see from Lionel Sanders, but this is still going to get you a decent bang for your buck if you're crunched for time, and even if you're advanced level here. So we're talking about multiple 3-minute efforts at ascending outputs in your VO2 max zone. So starting at 110% of your FTP, 112, 114, 116, 118 to 120. So you're working your way through the gamut. In this 45 minutes, you are getting 18 minutes of total kind of max aerobic capability. Some of this is going to break into zone 6 because of the way Zwift breaks the zones at 120%. But really, that's kind of that crossover effect. This is a very efficient workout. Again, scalable. You could actually extend this out. Maybe you need a little bit more recovery. You've got 2 minutes of recovery in between. So you're going to get close to full recovery. Your heart rate's going to recover, but your legs are probably going to start to feel like they want a little bit more as you get to the end of this workout. Number of ways to redesign this workout to scale for time, scale for intensity. It's just a well-designed workout inside and out. All right, next, another favorite athlete of mine, we have Mariana Voss. It looks like this workout falls into 2 different collections, Daily Fit and Pro Training Camp. We'll just jump in here and take a look. Another variation on kind of what we just saw. So this is more of an entry level to that. We kind of scaled down the last 3 workouts, right? We started with the finish focus, which is probably the hardest. Then we moved down into the Lionel Sanders workout, which is just a little bit easier in some way. You're bringing the intensity a little bit down closer to your mid VO2 max. And then you're looking at this Mariana Voss TT workout. It's 50 minutes, 59 stress points, so closer to a 1-to-1 ratio. Welcome to another workout in the Zwift Pro Training Camp series. This workout is brought to you by Team Jumbo Visma. Wow, read much. This is a TT-specific workout, but one that would benefit anyone looking to race, almost any discipline, really. We will be doing a nice little warm-up and then getting into our 4x4 minute blocks just into zone 5. So this is like the 5x5s, bread and butter style workouts. This is probably the beginner level version of that, bridging into intermediate. So a little bit less load here. We're talking about 16 minutes total, and you're more in that VO2 max. You're not quite moving closer to that zone 6 or anaerobic level here, but you've got 4x4 minutes on at 107% of FTP and 2 minutes off at 50% of your FTP. So this is a really good starter workout to get you into that. It's pretty efficient for time. There's not a whole lot of fluff here. And again, scalable. You can go from 4x4 to 5x4 to 5x5 to 6x5. Whatever you want to do with this workout, you can absolutely scale it to meet your needs. All right, the next one that we're going to look at, I'm actually going to look at it in Zwift because when I search for it on what's on Zwift, because power is in the description of almost every single workout, it's just giving me 100 results. So it's just going to be faster for me to find it here. It's a 1-hour workout, 81 stress points, so pretty decent load. It's called a 4.5 out of 5 effort. So we'll get in the description here. It looks like for this one, it's just describing the set. So I'm not going to read that to you. I think you guys can read on your own. But if we take a look at this ride, what we're really looking at is 20 seconds of 200% of FTP. Like these are sprints. These are not quite maximal sprints, but we're talking about getting close to that, right? 400 watts for me in particular. I could definitely do more than that outdoors, but in terms of an indoor trainer, that's actually a tough sprint. And then you're going to get these 3 minutes recovery at about 75% of FTP. So this is a sprint workout, right? I think this is just kind of demonstrating a different power zone, right? I looked at a lot of max aerobic capacity, lots of VO2 max stuff with those last 3 workouts. This is a really good workout if you're just trying to develop that sprint capability, but this is a solid workout. You're not getting full slack off recoveries as well. You are getting a decent amount of load in the recovery valleys, but you're keeping a little bit of tension in the legs. I think this is a solid workout. All right, so the next one I want to pull up is push-pull maximum aerobic power here. It looks like it's in the Zwift Academy 2017. Man, back in that day, anybody remember 2017 Zwift Academy? That thing was a bitch, no lie. But this is a solid workout here. And this is to prove out that I'm not just indiscriminately mad at having mixed types of intervals here, right? You're showing a bunch of different types of intervals. So let's take a look at this. 1 hour and 43 minutes, stress points 124, so decent ratio there. The session is designed to work your upper aerobic capacity via pushing up your FTP from below, pulling it up from powers just above around your 20-minute pace, and some short, sharp efforts at your maximal aerobic power, MAP, or the power you can sustain at your VO2 max. Start with a good warm-up. It looks like we talk a lot about the intervals here. I don't know why people waste some of the description text. You can see that here. But this is pretty simple. You start with this ramping warm-up, and then you have 2 priming efforts here, 2 by 30 seconds at 123% of FTP. So you're bringing your aerobic system online, and then you go straight into a 20-minute effort at FTP. So the aerobic system has to wake up. Now, you might be relying a little bit anaerobically. For some folks, for the first several minutes of this effort, you're going to have to manage that, but it's certainly going to fatigue that if you are anaerobically dominant. Then you move into some different efforts. So you move into some VO2 max. So 3 by 4 minutes at 111% of FTP with 4-minute recoveries at about 50% of FTP, a little below. And then you do 5 by 1 minute at 123% of FTP with 1 minute recoveries at 68% of your FTP. So you're really just kind of hammering that max aerobic capacity here. So you're building up lactate over that 20 minutes. Theoretically, you should be able to continue to clear it, but you might need a little bit of time to buffer that out. Get a brief recovery, then you're hammering again with VO2 max. Now you're superseding your body's ability to clear that lactate. You're doing pretty hefty efforts at 4 minutes at that mid VO2 max for most people. And then you're going to move into these very highly repeatable efforts, these 1 by 1s here. You're spending, looks like 21 minutes in zone 4, 12 minutes in zone 5, and 6 minutes in zone 6. Zone 6, we are still talking about that break point, right around that 123%. So just above that zone 5, a lot of aerobic work being done, high percentage of your threshold here. These are a mixed bag in terms of intervals. You're trying to kind of pre-fatigue and extend that aerobic capacity, trying to execute when you've already baked that fatigue and that lactate into the system. This is where different types of interval sets are going to complement each other. All right, next one we are going to take a look at here. It looks like it's only in one collection here. It is the seated and standing workout. It's in the climbing plan here. So you can kind of see the power profile here is the inverse of what we were seeing in the finish focus workout here. A little bit of a difference in the interval, but now you're talking about that ascending level effort. And we'll kind of take a look at the description and that will become clear as to why it's called seated and standing. But it's an hour and 14 minutes, 107 stress points. These are designed to be done in the saddle for the first 2 minutes, then stand and do the final 30 seconds out of the saddle and sprinting over the top of the hill. Short recoveries to help to improve your repeatability at the same time. And then it describes the actual layout of the workout here. So now we're talking about functional practice. You're not only getting that load with 26 minutes between your kind of max aerobic capability from VO2 max into that low zone 6 or anaerobic level, but you're also practicing what you would see in the real world, whether you're climbing or cresting a hill. You may be climbing in the saddle, and then you need to take that steepest piece or come over the top of the hill in that standing 30-second effort. This is something that you are going to see in the real world. So it's practical from a power execution and a repeatability perspective, as well as muscular recruitment and engagement, where you're standing out of the saddle and getting additional recruitment from different muscles than you would in the saddle. So great workout here. Again, kick the dog on this whole progressive overload. There's a number of ways that you can modify this. If you need a more beginner workout, it can be shorter. You can do fewer of these sets. You can expand the recovery, so on and so forth. And the last workout I'm going to look at here is Sweet Spot Long. It's in the Grand Fondo plan. There's actually a Sweet Spot Medium and Short, which are similar, kind of like the same thing I showed you with the 2 by FTP efforts. They're just different permutations based on the amount of time that you have available. So this one in particular, it's 2 hours and 25 minutes. This is super long for a lot of people. This is a good weekend workout to work aerobic ability if you have the time to get on the trainer and do this. 173 stress points, decent amount of load. Sweet spot training, or SST for short, will give you a great bang for your buck, as you can spend quite a bit of time in the sweet spot of your power curve without building up undue amounts of training stress. That is what sweet spot is, right? So you're not necessarily going to be able to do 2 hours and 25 minutes at your threshold. You are going to bake up a ton of fatigue, but working just sub-threshold, maxing out at that 95% of FTP, doing these over-unders, you can effectively push up that FTP from the bottom. Looks like you've got a couple of kind of leg snapper efforts, 1 minute, 110% of FTP, just to kind of add insult to injury. Looks like you've got a 30-minute block, a 30-minute block, and then a 40-minute block. So you are all in all spending about 100 minutes-ish at that kind of high percentage of your FTP between sweet spot and very low threshold. But we can take a look at some of the other versions of this workout here. So we've got, here's the medium one here. So this one is 1 hour and 25 minutes, and the short one is 50 minutes. So we've got different options. Even if you take this short one here, like this is a great either time crunched or beginner level workout. You have 50 minutes of work here. And between this kind of zone 4, that 95% of FTP, and your sweet spot, you're spending 42 minutes of that in zone. 42 out of 50 minutes. You're not fucking around with this workout. You are getting some decent work done. There's a time and place for sweet spot. You're not going to be doing it all the time, but sensibly introduced into your training plan, these are solid workouts. So I know that was a lot of words. Spent a lot of time with me on the screen, kind of deep diving some of those workouts. And I hope that it was helpful to do a mini deep dive into each workout and show you what I was criticizing, show you why I have a problem with so many of the workouts of Zwift and some of the trappings that you may fall into, whether it was a poorly defined or described workout that doesn't meet the specificity criteria, whether it's just a poorly designed from a load perspective, something in between, and then the contrast to the well-designed workouts. I think what you'll find most prevalently in the well-designed workouts is that they're simple. Keep it simple, stupid. Again, being able to memorize or mostly memorize those workouts and being kind of boring from a structure perspective, that means it's probably a pretty decent workout. Workout design is not sexy. There's something to be said about throwing in a little bit of variation, if you want to call it complexity, just to keep people mentally engaged in the workout. But all in all, when you're coming online to do structured work, it's not about making a sexy graph. It's about doing what's needed to work those energy systems that need to be enhanced. So I hope that you guys found this valuable. I will get around to doing an overview or a review of the plans. I will be able to make that video quite a bit shorter because I've covered a lot of that content here, and these will be good complementary videos. And I can just give a higher level overview of what plans are good or bad based on a lot of the tenets that I discussed here in this video. But let me know if you have any thoughts, questions, concerns. Let me know about your experiences with particular workouts, which ones you like, which ones you don't like, which ones you're curious about in the comments down below. And I'm going to give the shameless pandering here. Hit all the buttons, the subscribe. It helps. You don't have to. You're not obligated. I'm asking nicely. Please. I'm saying please. Thank you in advance. Thanks for coming. And as always, I will catch you guys in the next one. See ya.